a question that came up in discussion was, how do you deal with incompetence within your team and your organization? So what I'd like to do is outline 5 steps to help you address this. Now, in the interest of empiricism and learning and growth, this needs to be done transparently, and you need to inspect and adapt as you make your way through it. Now, when you're dealing with incompetence and challenging people's competence, it is absolutely essential you lean into the Scrum values, show respect, as well as the rest of the force, so that you are not attacking the person and you want them, they then want to get better, right? Because it's very challenging when somebody comes up to you and says, do you know what? You can't do the job that you're meant to be doing. Unless they're very new to it, people often take that as a personal attack, which means they'll shut down and they won't learn. So we need to approach this with curiosity, compassion, and empathy. Because if you just walk up to someone and go, do you know what? You're crap. Sort yourself out, get better. I'm not sure they're going to want to come on the journey with you. So the 5 steps are identify, measure, train, practice, reassess. That's the high level. So if you want to switch off and go and watch another video, now's the time. I'm going to go into detail, right? So first thing, identify. And this is, there's 4 levels of competence in model I'm very fond of using. The first step is conscious incompetence. You don't know that you can't do the job. You ever done that? You know, you might be doing some work around the house, or you might want to cook a new meal or something. You think, oh yeah, I can do this. I can make caramel. How easy is that? It's just sugar and water, right? And then you realize that you can't. You've just elevated yourself to the next level. You've gone from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. You know that you can't do it. Now, this is the tough time. This is the challenging time where you need support and learning. And there's a lot of people that will happily live in ignorance in that state of conscious incompetence because it's challenging to call yourself out and know that you're a bit rubbish at something. So once we're in that conscious incompetence phase, there's 2 things that happens. People either give up and walk away, or they put some graft in and learn to get better. They work at it, they seek training, coaching, mentoring, support, they practice, they do work. And then hopefully they will work to that point of being consciously competent. So they're very mindful about the task and activity as they're doing it, but they know they can do it. So they know they're doing it and they're having to be very mindful how they do it. Now, if you do that for long enough, and if you work at it hard enough, you then hit this point of being unconsciously competent. And this is where you watch real craftspeople. People who are really good at a task or activity make it look flawless and easy and fluid. And you think, oh, anyone can do that. And then you realize how much skill they have. So they're the 4 levels. How do we get there? Well, the first thing is identifying, finding out, are you competent or not? That means that you have to do something. You have to try and complete the task or activity. Can you achieve this? Which means you're going to have to do some work. And this is a key thing, that if you're going to be working with people as a Scrum Master, it's really important. You've actually done some work in your time. You've actually built some stuff. You can't just be constantly talking about people, although that's a skill in itself. You need to have been in a team that ships something, in my opinion. All right, so first of all, identifying. You think, hey, I'm not very good at this. And then having some measures, some checks or balances in place. How good are you? Are you just a little bit off? Are you way off? How do you measure that skill level? Is it a matter of finesse, timing, elegance, completion, quality, whatever? Understanding that and being able to check where your skill level at is really helpful. So I'm trying to learn to play the guitar. And music is a very easy thing. If you're musically inclined, you can hear whether you're hitting the notes right. And then it's being able to read the music, play it, not make any errors. And then if you can do that slowly, you're then trying to do it at speed. So having those measures in place is key. So often it is intertwined with doing some training. This is where somebody who is skilled and has competence, in fact, expertise in a particular topic area, and the more expertise they have can help. However, sometimes the people who are the real masters of it may not be the most effective communicators or training, because funnily enough, training, once again, is a skill. So you will go off and you'll figure out how to do it, and you'll do some learning. You will practice. You'll have multiple goes at it. You'll repeat it until you are good, or at least got the rudiments there. And so that training and practice may be joined up a little bit, but often after training, you have to go away and do the hard yards. And there's a thing they say that you need to do 10,000 hours of something to get good at it. And if you think 10,000 hours, that's a whole bunch of hours. Practice constantly, regularly. And this is the interesting thing they found out. 15 minutes practice a day trumps 2 hours a week. So if you do 2 hours on one day, it is not as effective as 15 minutes every day. Because that's the way our brain works, little and often. So you need to practice every day until it becomes routine, until you are able to recognize your skill level. And then the last thing is reassess. At some point, go back to the person you had training. Go to a peer. Go to somebody you respect. Ask your mentor, hey, where would you rate me on this? Wash, rinse, repeat. So then you go back to the start again. You're identifying where you're at. You can then measure yourself. You can then go and get some more training, maybe some advanced training, training from a different person, training from a different perspective. Measure it, reassess. And this is why working in teams is so powerful, because you have that opportunity to grow your skill level with other people, and you can constantly get that reification of your skill level and perhaps your breadth of skills by working with your team. If you're on your own, sometimes it's very challenging to be able to build that out. So that's individually. What about if an organization is incompetent? The first thing you need to do is determine, is it something the organization needs to be competent at? And this is really critical, because the amount of energy you have to expend in an organization for organizational learning is huge. And just like a good product backlog, the first thing you need to do is discard, well, we won't do that. Hey, we're really not very good at this particular thing. We'll get someone else to do it. And this is where partnerships kick in. This is why I love lean agile procurement, because you find other people to augment that organizational skill by working with others. It's just logical. It is too much graft, hard work, and money to build that within my org, so I will partner with another organization to uplift. And then together we'll be better. Okay, so you've decided that your organization needs to improve. You better have very senior support. So we're talking chief executive, board level, director level support, because you are going to have to invest. And this is where we see agile adoptions are part of this competence space. It means we're going to have to follow those 5 steps again. But just sending people off on a whole lot of 2-day courses will not help instill and sustain that organizational adoption for agility. There needs to be support and coaching and conditioning around it. Now, that also means for an organizational improvement, the leaders must invest in this. The leaders need to hold their people, teams to account to improve as a team. So I take great joy in reading old historical fiction novels. And at the moment, I'm reading the Horatio Hornblower series, which is set on British naval ships in the 19th century, 1805, in the Napoleonic Wars. And they would get people onto these ships, landsmen. They just, it's horrible, but they just used to grab people, put them on these ships, and they were there for 2 years. And that's where the term able seaman comes from, because they had to be able to function as a seaman, which means they could knot and splice rope, they could lash, they could complete the basics of operating a very complex sailing vessel, often under horrific conditions. And so that awareness of, here's the standard, we'll train it, but it was very much supported from the captain, because unless everybody on that ship could function, that ship would not function. Now, if we took that to the modern context, we certainly don't need the brutality of that time, but we need our leadership to support and understanding the time to learn, helping create the space for people to learn, creating exercises for people to practice and engage, to find out where the weak spots are, to support it compassionately, but holding people accountable for getting better. Competence is critical for true success as a business. Do you know where you want to grow? And if you're a Scrum Master, how are you going to help your organization grow? Because that's part of your job.